Hi, Vince here again. Today I'd like to discuss an audio application I've been using called PulseEffects. But before I begin, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the DLN Extend podcast with Cubicle Nate and Eric Adams. It was through this podcast that I first learnt about this application. They discussed it in episode 8, I believe. If you haven't heard it, subscribe and have a listen. It's really great. PulseEffects is an application that provides a way for you to do real-time audio processing, stuff that otherwise you'd require hardware to do. What this means is that audio editing that you may have required a program like Audacity to do can now be done as you record audio, in particular with things like noise reduction. Additionally, because it's real-time, it can also be used to clean up your audio and provide a noise gate and compression when you're on, say, a video conference or joining a live stream. A noise gate has been particularly useful for me because I'm often in a noisy environment with kids playing or with wind noise, but it's useful for other things too, like noisy keyboards, which can annoy some people too. What noise gates will do is suppress sounds below a certain threshold level that you can set, but then it allows sounds above that threshold level to go through untouched, such as when you start to talk. Now, I'm no audio engineer, but I'll try and share with you what I've learnt so far. The information on how to get it installed should be on this GitHub page, and I'll link it down below. Now, let's take a look at PulseEffects here. I usually use it for my audio input, so my mic, but it can also actually be used for your audio output too. The first setting you might want to look at is up here actually, and it's in here, and you click Pulse Audio, and you'll need to just check that your input or output is the actual device that you need. When you first install this program, it's using the default that's in your Pulse Audio, but you might want to just uncheck that and manual select or make sure that the right one is selected. For me, it's my Razer headset. The rest I just left as default. Next, let's have a look at the noise gate itself. It's important that you'll need to probably adjust the settings that come out of the box because it is highly dependent on the individual characteristics of your hardware. Because of that, let's take a moment to try to understand what the settings are, and I hope I get this right. First, there's the on-off button. That's pretty self-explanatory, but here it gives me an opportunity to show you what it sounds like without the noise gate on. So this is what it sounds like. You might hear some background hissing noise, and if I turn it back on, this is what it sounds like. Next thing to look at is the gain reduction. This is the actual amount by which you want the low volume sounds to be suppressed by. So usually the lower the better in this situation. The next important thing to understand is this one here, the threshold. This is the actual gate itself. It is at this volume level where if it is below the level, the noise gate will suppress the sound by this gain reduction amount. But if your sound goes above that level, it should let it go through untouched. Does that make sense? I'll just repeat that. So at this threshold volume level, if the sound is below that level, it will get suppressed by this gain reduction. But if it goes above the threshold, this program should let the sound through untouched. Then we have the attack and release settings. These will basically control how quickly and sharply the gate opens or closes to either let the sound through or block it. They're mostly the settings that I had to fiddle with to get it to work the way I wanted it so far. There are other settings I have as well, which I have no idea what they do, and I'll continue to try and read up on them. The next feature that I use is the compressor. This essentially reduces the difference between the quietest part of your audio and the loudest parts. That is, that it compresses the range of volumes or the dynamic range of your audio. So you're left with fewer very quiet parts and fewer very loud parts. It's more even. Now, there are still so many other features and settings of this program that I haven't really even begun to explore yet, and that I frankly don't quite understand. as you can see here in the audio input section, and as I mentioned before, also with audio outputs as well. I mean, you can add things like reverberation and change your pitch. It's a bit crazy what you can achieve with this. The program does add a little bit of processor overhead to your system when you're using it, but I think it's highly worth it. Another thing to mention are these arrows here. I think they're for organizing the priority of your noise processing features. And one final thing I mustn't forget is you'll need to also, in Pulse Audio, make sure that the correct input and output devices are selected. So when you install PulseEffects, it provides these devices as well. And if you would like to be recording, you've got to make sure that you choose the PulseEffects mic as the default. And output, well, doesn't really matter in my situation because we're not using it. I just leave it as my headphones. So I'm going to continue to try to learn about all this audio processing stuff. It's very interesting. If I pick up something else that's useful, I'll try and share it with you guys. Thanks so very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to leave them down below. Bye, everyone.